Welcome back to Women to Women, coming to you live from WIMG AM 1300 or via the internet at WIMG1300.com. And if you are viewing us, you are watching WZBN Mercer 25. We are talking with Andrea O'Neill, poet, writer, and founder of Cupid and Cleopatra, who is sharing her insights about relationships, and particularly relationships in the Black community. And over the break, we were just talking a little bit about playing games and the games that we play. And I don't want to give too much away. I know you're going to share something with us later, but talk to me about games and dynamics in the Black community, and a little bit more about this masculine female.
Sure. I don't know if you've ever gotten on the street, but walking and you're, just about your business, you got your business walk on and your business face on, and someone says, "Smile, Ma." You're like, I don't know if you've ever gotten that, but I get it. And maybe it's just like the East Coast walk and the swag that we have up here. But I do find that when you smile, at least on the outside, there's a sense of welcoming and warm energy coming off of you. And I hear that a lot from the men that write on my site about women being too hard or too unapproachable. And that's, I think, a very harsh word, and it's a little bit unfair to use because it's not recognizing all of the things that we've got going on in our lives. We're trying to take care of children by ourselves. We're trying to hold down a home, trying to provide for everyone going on in our life. And we tend to be the pillar of strength for everyone. And at the end of the day, we don't have time for ourselves. This brings me back to one of the recent posts on Cupid and Cleopatra by a friend of mine who's a psychologist in Atlanta. She's got her own practice. She's called Dr. India Nakongo, and she wrote a special piece for me about what do you want, and it's really exploring what women want instead of getting to the root of what everyone else wants for them. So, for instance, I say, "Hey, Kim, what do you want for yourself today? What are you going to do?" And you start telling me about your grocery list and how you got to go pick up these kids and how you've got to take them to soccer practice and then you got to submit something for your boss. And by the time you get through from 8 to 5, you haven't listed off anything that's actually for Kim. Right. And so that's really getting back to the root of at least putting at least one thing in your life that's for yourself every day. And maybe that's your maintenance of yourself. If you really feel that you've been in your sweatpants stage for too long, maybe on that list today is crossing off my sweatpants. So you put on heels today, or you put on a little makeup, or you put on some earrings to make you feel feminine and that you're the queen that you want to present to the world. So I think that's the feminine energy that you're talking about, and just really kind of washing off a little bit of all of the burdens on the world, so you're projecting a positive energy and looks like it's something welcoming to other people. And you mentioned before the break something about attracting so-called feminine men. If you could elaborate on what you mean by that.
Well, I think it comes from enabling our men, and taking care of them instead of having them taking care of us. I mean, one of the things that's so easy to do, and I have even seen it close to home, is the way in which mothers enable sons. It's almost like you want to protect them from the world to a fault, and so because you've protected them so much, they become dependent on the woman figure, and in many cases go straight from their mother's house to their woman's house, and we enable them, in just the same way, taking care of them, making sure that everything's done for them. And that's part of that masculine energy that I'm talking about in terms of what we're giving off and handling everything. And, in what ways can we shave back a little bit and not be caregiver for the world?
And I've had to tailor that in my own relationship. I've gotten called out before and because I'm used to the one being in the boardroom and being the only woman in the room and, just handling business for so long. And I was single for a long time. I was single for 4 years before I met my current boyfriend. And I was just used to being by myself. So I was pulling my own chair out and trying to figure out how to get all my luggage on the train to the airport. And it becomes one of those things where you just don't sit back and let a man be a man. And that's what sometimes is required. So I don't plan anything anymore, or try not to. I know you're listening, Mark, so I'm not going to call myself out. But there's sometimes just let him sit back and plan. You can open that jar of peanut butter. Let him do it for once, just to make him feel that he is contributing in some kind of way. If there's something high on the shelf, you don't have to pull that chair out. Let him get it. He wants to do that stuff for you. He wants to protect you, because I think that's in their nature. And like you said, it's pushing the baby bird out of the nest sometimes. And if you realize that you've got a baby bird, then maybe it's time for you to leave the nest because
you better ask somebody.
Because yes, I think we get into our nurturing self and like we're the salt of the earth,
Right.
and we end up being everybody else's pillar of strength again, and we forget about ourselves sometimes.
Definitely.
Which leads to resentment, and then you give off the energy that you don't want to be in the relationship when you do.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about the woman who, doesn't want to play games? I mean, back to games, doesn't want to play games anymore, is just interested in a serious relationship that's going somewhere. Do you have any words of wisdom for her?
Yes, I think it's okay to ask. And Steve Harvey said this. I'm going to take his line. It's okay to ask where you're going. And I have an article on the site that I wrote myself about men are like taxi cabs. Nobody's getting into a relationship with them until that light is on. So you can be hailing a cab all day long out in the rain, the sleet, the snow. But if that cab is just passing you by, then that means he's not ready to be in a relationship. So if you get into a taxi cab and you don't ask where the destination is, don't be surprised when you end up somewhere that you don't want to be. And, there's a woman on the blog. I tell her story. She's, was in a relationship with someone, and she was really feeling him, and she came to a point where she was a little bit concerned about where things were going, so she asked him, and he said, I don't want to be in a relationship right now. But did she not leave the relationship? No, she stayed and continued to stay in the relationship and said, you know what? I think I'm going to interpret this as he's not ready to be in a relationship right now. So she stayed, and they continued to play house. And a couple months later, she's still there, and now is concerned that he still doesn't want to be in a relationship. So, that's that taxi cab that you end up in the middle of nowhere. You got to get out. If you see your, potholes of steam rolling out, you rolling into Gotham City, you need to hop out of that cab before you get somewhere before Batman can come save you. So I think we need to start looking out for ourselves anymore. And we have that women's intuition. A lot of times we don't pay attention to it.
Right. We'd rather be in a relationship than
We'd
by
rather
ourselves.
be in a relationship, and there's a difference between companionship and partnership.
Come on, somebody.
And if you're in a companionship, know that's what it is. And take it for what it's worth. Don't be expecting him to be a partner if you haven't put those constraints on him.
Yeah. Amen. Amen to that.